So now the Big Ten. Look, Michigan State wagon 26-5. They're 17-3 in the conference. Won 6 or 7 in a row now. Maryland second in the conference since Michigan State just beat Michigan while we're recording. So Michigan's third. And Wisconsin has played well this season. I mean, 13-7 in conference. Team I want to talk about, Purdue. They've lost 5 in a row. They've lost in their last 10. They're 5-5. That's what I'm trying to get to. They're 5-5, sliding of late. And then Illinois won 3 in a row. They were 12-8 in the conference, 20-11 now. Impressive comeback. They looked like when Duke beat them by 40, I thought they were taking a dead body out of Madison Square Garden, and they have found life and have been very impressive of late. And then Oregon, who I want to end with, 22-8. They've won 6 in a row. Dana Altman, it's his month. The guy is one of the most underrated coaches in college basketball because of what his teams can do in March. What do you see here in the Big Ten graphic? We'll start with the March 12th games for right now. The bad slate, if you will.
For the bad teams, it's interesting. One team that I loved for a portion of this year, but at this point, just the way they finished the season, they're pretty dead, is USC. There was a time when I thought USC was a very frisky team that could potentially just get hot and make the tournament. They've lost 6 of 7, so I got to move on from that. Rutgers, I wonder, what they can do with the talent they have and how much those guys care. I really don't understand how Steve Peichel, as a defensive-minded coach who was a top 5 defense the last 2 years, couldn't get this team inside the top 100 defensively. But with the way they score, I think they can absolutely give Purdue a game. Purdue was eventually proved too much. Smith and TKR just kind of picked them apart as that game went along. Ohio State is desperate. I'll give them that. And Illinois is, I said the stat about, I think it's 18-2 in games where they've shot over 27% from 3, which is a low number, obviously. So as a 7 seed, and just from eye test and vibes, Illinois is a team that has flashed one of the highest ceilings in the league. And then Northwestern Minnesota. Minnesota just doesn't have enough, but Dawson Garcia is one of the best players in the league and can always will you to a win. I just don't think they can keep them and Northwestern are very half-court teams, and I just think Wisconsin is going to be able to score too much. So not really taking any of these. I didn't mention Iowa. They're 0-8 against Q1. Maybe they can get hot, but Owen Freeman was their best player, and they just don't have him. So not really taking any of these day one teams seriously, but they should be a better day one games than some of the ACC, for example, or the Big 12.
Yeah, Rutgers, man, is infuriating because you have 2 guys that are going to go in the lottery, the NBA draft, and you can't be better than an 11 seed in your conference. I know people want to say, well, it's the pieces around them. It's you can say that, but like you said, defensive-minded coach who's a really good defensive guy, the care and the character in that locker room, if you're not in the top 100 defensively, there's something up. It's not that the coach can't coach. It's the coach can't get through to certain guys for certain reasons. And that's the infuriating part about Rutgers is that's the risk you take with trying to get one and dones that are really talented and they can have some fun highlights on your team, but that team might not win. It's like Ben Simmons at LSU where he just quit in the second half.
Markelle Fultz.
Yeah, Markelle Fultz. It's frustrating to watch, and they've been disappointing for me to watch in college basketball. And I agree with you. There's not much in the first round. Sean Stewart, shout out Ohio State. He's still averaging 7 fouls per 40 minutes. That's what he was averaging at Duke, and now he's averaging that at Ohio State. He actually fouled out last night in their loss. So, some things never change with him, but I do like him. I always said that Sean Stewart goes 85 miles an hour at all times. Just sometimes he goes 85 miles an hour in a school zone, and you just can't let that happen. And so Ohio State, I think they'll beat Iowa, but there's not much there. I'll tell you where my value is. The DraftKings stuff, the odds are not out yet, so we don't have a graphic for that like we've had the other ones. But if there's value, to me, it is Oregon at the 8 seed and it is Illinois at the 7 seed because the way they've been playing of late. And I've already alluded to Dana Altman being a guy I trust in March. I saw a stat that he has now won 20. He's had 15 consecutive 20-win seasons at Oregon.
Well,
the guy he coaches and he coaches well late. And in the first round, I'm going to say this for our March Madness preview, but I'm going to say it again now, is he's 8-0 in the first round at Oregon. Like, the guy just coaches his guys up.
They kicked South Carolina's ass last year, and they probably should have beat Creighton.
Yeah, he just coaches his guy up. Like, their length is always seems like a problem for matchups, and I think granted they have to play Michigan State after. I think they'll beat Indiana, but if they beat Michigan State, the 1 seed, then all of a sudden I think it's doable. Like, I know they've been Jekyll and Hyde during the year, but as of late they're playing their best ball, and this is the month that people want to talk about Izzo as Mr. February or Mr. March. Dana Altman for Oregon is a really good coach in March too. And I think it's going to be 2 well-coached teams playing March 14th with Oregon and Michigan State.
So when Oregon played at Michigan State, they were up 50-36 at halftime, and then were outscored 50-24 in the second half.
That was the Jace Richardson welcome to the starting lineup.
29 for Jace. Pisses me off that he didn't play more. Maybe I need to give Izzo the benefit of the doubt that he had this plan all along that this was going to be to ease him in, but he's obviously their best player. So it's cool to see him be treated like that. I've been critical of Michigan State this year. They're a top 10 team. They top 5 defense, have shown this ceiling of when they're running, how good they are in the open floor, and everyone plays so hard because the next guy's ready to go in at all times. The shooting, it's really just, Holloman's been shooting the 3 better, but it really just feels like it's Akins and Richardson that can hit it. That concerns me. But yeah, I think Oregon is a team that is hitting they're in a 1-possession game right now with Washington with 4 minutes left. But yeah, Dana Altman is just showing time in and time out. Like, he really elevates his guys here. And they had this 5-game losing streak, from January 25th to February 8th. But outside of that, they're 22-3 with non-conference wins against A&M, San Diego State, and Alabama. I think they're a team that I have a dark horse for the NCAA tournament here. That matchup with Indiana, though, is really interesting because Indiana's been playing really good ball, and Indiana was up 1 on the road late until Shellstead hit a bomb. I had Oregon minus 6.5. It was an absolutely unreal hit because Oregon closed the game on like a 9-0 run. Didn't feel like I deserved that one, but man, Indiana, with the way Renew and Ballo can bully ball down low, Galloway has been playing better. Miles Rice is a good guard. Luke Goody can shoot it. Mgbakbo can shoot it. They're big, and they're playing for their coach right now. That is whoever wins that Indiana-Oregon game will give Michigan State a game. And I think Oregon is one of my favorite teams in the league. But the team that when I think Big Ten, my favorite team is the Maryland Terrapins. Maryland is the number 1 defense since February 1st in the country. And when you look at their starting 5, you've got an absolute vet big man in Julian Reese. You've got a lottery pick in Derek Queen. And you've got 3 guards that have came in from the portal who are all can shoot that thing off the bounce and create and get hot. And that starting 5, and everyone wants to knock the depth. Maybe you're getting tired easier with having to play 3 games in 3 days if they were to go on to win it. But that starting 5 is, to me, the clear, far and away best starting 5 in this league. Say what you want about Kevin Willard. He's done a great job with this team, and he trusts these guys to make their decisions and to kind of just go. Like, there's teams where it's frustrating. There's so many Wake fans to be like, why aren't we running any offense? And I understand, and I'm the type of guy who can say that at times, like, why are you just letting guys go? But there's certain teams where the way to play is to let the guys go. And Maryland's one of those teams that can really just cook. And the fact that you're pairing that, I love what they do offensively. The fact that they're the number 1 defense over the past 1.5, I'm loving Maryland. Michigan's super interesting. I wonder what you think of Michigan. I tweeted out today that they scored 15 points in the lost game. Again, they had 15 points scored by non-7-footers. My boy Christian Anderson almost went there, and they're mad that they didn't get him. But the guard play is just really weak. But when Wolf and Golden can just cause problems for so many teams, and like when Purdue comes in, where they also have a very concentrated attack of a clear couple best players. I love what Dusty May does, and the guards. It's not like they can't play. It's just that they're not like good enough to be there to be hooping every game. But it's like Burnett, Gale, and Donaldson. They're not bad players. They're just not.
I think Dusty May in year 1's done a really good job especially taking over year one, 22 wins. I agree with you about like Michigan. The concern is the guard play and the guys that are not 7 feet tall for them. Wolf has been fantastic. I have been off of Michigan for a little bit because of, I mean, I'm calling them like fluke wins, but I felt like they got lucky wins. I can't remember what. I don't have their schedule in front of me,
They
but
won 6 in a row by 4 points or less.
yeah, there you go. That's my case in point. And I'm like, look, this is water's going to find its level and they're going to slide. And I thought the slide would happen with them in March. Like I thought they would be a high seed, and I had the lower seed upsetting them. I had like say they were going to be a 3 seed. I had their first round matchup. Oh, I could see them getting knocked off. But since they've been sliding of late, now in March, I'm interested to see their matchup because I still am not high on them, and I'm not high on them in the conference tournament. Like, I think Purdue would be the team I'd take in that region. I know they're 5-5 in their last 10 as we're recording, but I think they beat the winner of Rutgers USC, and I think they beat Michigan. And then I was going to say they faced off against Maryland, but I wanted to get your thoughts on Illinois, who, like I said, the last 3 games, they found their way again. They slipped. They had the bad loss against Duke, and then they had 2 losses before the Duke game. But Underwood came out and said everybody was sick, like they're battling the flu, and you could tell in those games that like they were not 100%. But they won 81-61 versus Iowa, 93-73 at Michigan, and they won 88-80 against Purdue. Is there a chance that Illinois can beat Maryland here in the semifinal game?
Oh, 100%. Illinois. If you asked me who the best team was in the Big Ten 2 months ago, I would have said Illinois without hesitation. So that hasn't changed. What is it? White has been playing really well lately. And Brad Underwood at times, like the UConn game specifically, like when he had the interview and he said about Donovan Clingan, if he blocks 100, he blocks 100, really pissed me off because he did block 100. And you have Coleman Hawkins, who you can play at the 5 and go small ball and space it out. And I feel like they didn't lean into that lineup enough. Anyways, that's a nitpick. I know you studied Illinois for the Duke game, and as good as this top 9 is in the Big Ten, like there's nobody who Illinois can beat every single one of those teams. I think they'll probably be, as much as I love Maryland, I think Illinois will probably be the best long shot bet, because if they beat Maryland, which they'll be 4-point underdogs in, like max, probably smaller, you're playing Michigan and Purdue who are very vulnerable. So Illinois has a really good path to the title game. And Maryland isn't the type of team that Maryland doesn't crush you. Like they'll win by 12 in a nice win, but I just in the NCAA tournament, I think Maryland is the team that I think has the best chance to make a deep run. But I think Illinois is absolutely going to be probably the best value bet for this tournament.
What was the tournament that we talked about? Was it the Big 12 that we're taking two long shots on?
Are you saying if it's Illinois and Oregon here?
Yeah, like I'm taking Illinois and Oregon as my dark horses, and if they play in the championship, then I'm gonna make profit, because I seriously, matchup wise, I just think Illinois has found something, and I think they can hang with Maryland. They can obviously beat Maryland, but then with Oregon, like Michigan State is the factor here. And they played so good, and it's tough for me to go against Izzo and what they've done, because they now have established an identity of being shit talkers. Like the last couple of games, like they're shit talking. They got into it with Michigan at half court today at the end of the game. Like they are going to run their mouths and they're going to beat you. And so they have that personality now going into March. And that's always great for me to see with a team. Like this is the type of team I want to back. Say all that saying I'm still going to pick Oregon, I think, to upset them, because I just like Dana Altman, and it's going to backfire. It's going to blow up in my face. So Illinois will have to be my dark horse team to win it all. But yeah, I like Illinois a lot, man, to go back to Illinois. But Underwood is frustrating because he is stubborn in his ways of like, this is not a good 3-point shooting team. You alluded to it. What was the stat of what the record is when they shoot 27% or better?
18-2.
They're 18-2 on 27% from 3 or better. That is such a bad shooting percentage. And for them to be 18-2 is crazy. And they have like 1 or 2 guys that I trust shooting the 3, but I think Bozeman's the guy that like 80% of his shots are threes or something like that, and he's shooting 25% from three. It's something crazy that I had on my Duke film breakdown, and I was like, why is this team shooting the rock like this?
He pissed me off. He's on my first team. All pisses me off. My first
Him
team
and
all pisses me
Caleb
off is Caleb Love, Elliot Cadeau, Cam Hildreth, Colin Boswell, and David Joplin.
So yeah, Boswell. I said Bozeman.
Guess the last time he hit multiple threes in a game was January 14th against Indiana. The one Illinois note that I completely forgot about, but I'm remembering that I took Maryland legit and started worrying about Illinois when Maryland went to Champaign and won by 21. So you could argue that the revenge element there and that Illinois can make those adjustments, but Derek Queen and Julian Reese are going to be a problem for them on the inside.
Do you think anybody in the UCLA side of the bracket can make a run? Like I gave Mitch Cronin his flowers that, look, he coaches his team up after criticizing how his team's soft during the season. You think UCLA can be the team that is a dark horse for winning the tournament for the Big Ten?
UCLA and Wisconsin are the two teams that I have the toughest time reading in this league. Wisconsin, I was starting to buy until they started losing. I still think the way Tanjay and Blackwell score, the way they move the ball and the depth they have, that they're a really solid team that it was being underrated for a while. But, there's still I think Klesmit was hurt, and like I still don't love their guard. Those guys their two best players are wings, which is cool. You can call them big guards. They're wings to me. You wish you had, like, if a Chucky Hepburn was still there, I think I would feel better about Wisconsin. So I'm still trying to figure out Wisconsin, but the way that they shoot and pass, there's times where they look fantastic. UCLA, man, it's been ugly. I was out on them when Mick was bitching and moaning and they were losing to everybody. But man, I've had the pleasure of watching Mick Cronin coach from a low vantage point many times when he was at Cincinnati. I was telling you earlier about my Big East and American experiences. And he, the way he coaches a game is so insane. And I've grown to, at first it bothered me. He's the type of coach that, a minute and a half into the game, if he didn't like something you did, he yanks you within a minute and just screams at you. And he's this tiny man just screaming at this 6'9" dude. And they take it so well, which I don't understand. He does something. His players love him. But, like, they take it so well, they sit. And there's just so much, like, there's the defense and the rebounding is just a non-negotiable with him in a way that it is with a Kelvin Sampson. Like, he is that type of guy. And offensively, he's just had a lot of teams where it's just not pretty. Like, guess what team was pretty? The one that made the Final Four, because they had Johnny Juzang and Jules Bernard and Tiger Campbell, and they had pros. And then he had a nice run of talent. This is the least talented team he's had other than last year's bad team. Like, this still team isn't as good, but, like, Daly, Johnson, Clark, Andrews, Mack, like Stefanovic, they have guys, they have the depth, and they play his style of, in a half-court game, they can really grind out defensive stops and chip away offensively. I think UCLA is a sleeper team in the Big Ten tournament and in the NCAA tournament, even though it's a little uncomfortable. It's just, like I've said this before in this podcast, like, teams that have a strong identity on both ends of the floor. And they have that defensively and offensively. Damara can come in there and score it. And I didn't even say Tyler Bilodeau. Tyler Bilodeau is their best player. He is their guy that, like, Cincinnati is 6th in forcing turnovers, and while they're 100th in taking care of it, they're the type of team that in a half-court game can really take care of it. And even if it's not sexy what they're doing offensively, like, they're getting shots up, they're playing really hard, and they're disciplined. So UCLA, I really think the Big Ten's 1 through 9 is I really don't think the gap is that big. Between Michigan State and Oregon, that's a much smaller gap than we're getting between Auburn and Ole Miss, or we're getting between even Duke and Wake. Like, the Big Ten is just so tight.
Small margins.
Strengths and weaknesses of these top 9, and like,
who would you pick to win the Big Ten?
Maryland.
You take Maryland.
I'd take Maryland.
Okay.
Because they kicked Illinois' ass, and I just don't think Michigan or Purdue are that much of a threat. And the top is just such a clusterfuck, because I think Oregon could be the best team in that top half, but I'm not confident they get by Indiana. And then UCLA, I think UCLA would be my number 2. I'm kind of anti-Michigan State, and I need to address that and relieve my biases. But I just think Indiana, Oregon, Wisconsin, UCLA, I've seen them all play Michigan State. I think they can all beat Michigan State.
You said it, and I will look at those odds when it comes out. I still am going to look at my Oregon, Illinois odds. If they make sense to me, baby, I love my long.
I like it. At the end of the day, the 5 to 8 seeds are the sweet spot for these kind of long shot bets. Like if we're throwing around in my units, I would throw like a quarter to a half unit on it to win like 5 or 6. Like it's a great gamble. It's a fun gamble.
It's a fun gamble, and it gets you ready, get your mind right for March Madness, which is going to be approaching us soon after the conference tournaments. And look, it's going to be these conference tournaments. We've talked about them all: the ACC, Big East, Big 12, SEC, and now the Big 10. And I'm excited for it, man. I think there's going to be a lot of good ball. We're gonna learn a lot, I think, about these teams that will be playing next week in March. I'm just excited to watch these guys play on a bigger stage.
Do you think I'm being too harsh on Michigan State? Do you have a stronger opinion on them? I know you're high on Oregon, but I feel like that's more of a pro Oregon than an anti Michigan State take.
I'm a little bit more pro on Michigan State than you are. I love the element of a Cohen Carr. He's built for he's what I said about Tahad Pettiford for Auburn. He is built for a moment in March that I think that he's going to make a highlight reel play, or it's going to come down to him having to make something happen for Michigan State. And I like Jace Richardson. I think Jace Richardson is smooth. He's calm and collective, and he can change pace. He really has brought a new element to the team, like a new personality from coming off the bench to now starting. But there is something there that I can't allude to. I don't know what it is. It's just a feeling I have with Michigan State where I can't fully trust them. Like I have them well, I'm going to spoil it on here, but I'll say it again for March Madness. But I have them like a Sweet 16 is like the sweet spot for their ceiling for me for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't even know who they're matched up with, but I could see them struggling to get to the Sweet 16.
There's things you can cherry pick any game or any portion of a game from most, if not every team in the country this year and be like, this is why I don't like them or I don't trust them. And Michigan State played Iowa and they won 91-84. And they scored, 61 points in the second half? And I get it. I get it. But in that first half, an Iowa team that is not good, okay? They are 15-15, 6-13 league. They're missing their best player, okay? And they haven't won a Q1 game all season. And they threw a zone at Michigan State, and Michigan State had 5 or 6 possessions in a row that were just shitty. And it's just then Jace Richardson bailed him out a couple times. And I'm like, I get it. You're so much more talented, and you're such a better team than Iowa. You turned on the Jets, you crushed them in the second half. That's cool. I know that they can do that. But there's just other teams that don't piss me off like that. And it's I just don't want to see such ugly offensive. I don't want to see ugly offensive possessions strung together, and I don't want to see anything other than high effort and smart defense. And when I see either of those things reoccurring, I'm just kind of out on the team.
Yeah, I feel that. I am higher on them than you, but I understand where you're coming from. I said they might struggle with it. I said they might struggle to get the Sweet 16. I think they will get to the Sweet 16 is what I really meant to say, because I just think they have Cohen Carr and Jace Richardson and Izzo. He is on a redemption tour of he was very upset with how last year ended and said this was going to be the year that he was going to get everything back on track. And he has. And he's a great coach, and he's found youth in himself to get Michigan State back to where they were. And so I think they will make a Sweet 16. But to your points, though, you make good points to where you throw a zone at them, they are a shell of themselves, and they got to figure that out, because if they struggle against zone in March, I mean, it's survive in advance, and they can struggle very early. Christian, brother, this has been awesome. It really has been. We've said it best. I mean, we have talked a lot of ball today, and I think we're going to win every bet. That's the key. We made this YouTube video for everybody just to tell our picks, because we're never wrong.
That's the thing about futures. We only need one.
We only need one. I'm going to go back to the opening screen so people can see your Twitter handle, and we'll get out of here. But we got me at J-Man's Takes on Twitter. Christian, you can follow him at ODJ Hoops. Christian, brother, Thank you for coming on. This was so much fun, and I can't wait to see you next time. And we're going to talk March Madness. When the bracket's out, we got more matchups to talk about. So I appreciate you as always, man.
Hell yeah. Fired up. This was awesome. And it got me ready because I have the bank of everything that I've seen this year, and I have my stuff up, but I hadn't really dove into these conferences in the way that we just did. So super productive and fun.